All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Talks. This is our third Leadership Talks. We're going to be diving into accountability and management. And here today, I have my very good friend, Marissa Delgado. She owns Arizona Homegrown Experience. And before we kind of dive into why I have her here in particular to talk about this specific topic, Marissa, tell them what you do, how people can find you, what kind of services you offer.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Marissa Delgado, like Becky said, or Rebecca. I'm one of the owners of Arizona Homegrown Experience, and we are a private chef and small catering business here in Arizona. We just opened up probably 4 or 5 months ago, kind of in the midst of the pandemic, and it was really out of a way to kind of keep our wheels turning, try starting something new and fresh. I've always wanted to branch off and own something of my own. And Private Chef just seemed to be the perfect fit right now. So you can follow us. We're on Instagram at Arizona Home AZ Homegrown EXP, Instagram, Facebook, all those fun things. So yeah.
Well, and you're downplaying, which everybody has a tendency of doing. You're an amazing chef. Your wife Kelly is an amazing chef. I've always looked up to you too. I'm so proud of you guys for doing this. I know that it was scary. It's a lot of work to kind of jump in and just do it yourselves. But you guys have been amazing in what you've accomplished in really such a short amount of time. Your food is breathtakingly beautiful, and you definitely know how to put on an event. So this is perfect for you guys. I'm so excited.
Oh, thanks for doing the up playing for us.
Well, yeah, because everybody kind of comes on and they're like, this is what I do, and you're like, no, this is what I do. I'm awesome, and I have all these great things to share with the world. So it's important that we support each other in that. I wanted to kind of let you guys know, why I picked Marissa for this topic and why she's here with us. Marissa and I have known each other for 9 years, right?
Yeah, we just passed our 9-year anniversary.
I know. Happy anniversary.
I
didn't get you anything.
So this
didn't get you anything. Yeah. Our friendship is enough. But I hired Marissa when I was working at Artisan by Santa Barbara Catering Company as their pastry chef. I brought Marissa on as like a pastry assistant. You were kind of, newly graduated, fresh out of culinary school. And anybody who knows me knows that like I don't spend a ton of time on interviews. I spend kind of just enough time, but I don't spend, that much time because I feel like I can read people pretty quickly. And basically if you want the shot at the job, I'm willing to give you the shot kind of deal. So, but with you, Marissa, I don't know if you remember, we spent like an hour and a half talking. It was the longest interview of my life, I think still to today.
I think we might have just been talking.
Well, no, you were just kind of always, always hilarious, always fascinating. And I think that's one of your, best qualities that you bring to the table is that people just are kind of gravitated towards you. You kind of can't help but just like fall in love with you a little bit, It's true. I mean, you have that ability, which is why you've been able to, accomplish so many things. You've been on Chopped, and, you're like, your speaking abilities are amazing. You really know how to put on a show for people, which is, I think important. And it's something we need in this world because things can get, especially lately, have been a little bit like, there's like this cloud hanging over. So, but, when I first hired Marissa, and this is kind of why I brought her on for this topic. You were young, right? Were you 18, 19, something like that?
Yeah, I was 18.
18. And at Artisan, we ran a tight ship. I mean, we were by the book. It was one of those places where it was like, if you're 10 minutes early, you're late kind of deal. And you had a little bit of a, trouble being on time in particular. And I had kept telling you, like, you have to be on time, you have to be on time. And you're like, well, then just schedule me for 6:45 if that's what time you want me here. And one day you walked in and you were 1 minute late, and I sent you home. And tell everybody what you went on to do that day.
I went to Disneyland.
Yes, you went to Disneyland to think about what you did wrong,
I really had to clear my head after that and decided I need to get my life together. I'm going to Disneyland. But I was relieved I was able to leave early because I was that jerk of a little kid that, needed someone to finally start holding me real life accountability. I kind of breezed and had more fun in high school and culinary school probably than what I should have. And, I would say you were probably one of the first people that said, that's not going to fly here.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't, you don't get to come in and play games. And guess what? You're not that good. So, you need to show up on time. And it was the first like real accountability that I was having to hold for myself that I think started to make a difference. And, losing that I'm, an 18, 19-year-old kind of kid mentality to really saying like, hey, this is a big girl job.
And that's, I think that's probably what I ended up saying to you. Like, this is a big girl job. And if you want this job, you have to show up and you have to act like you want this job, because there's hundreds of other people out there that would take this really, really seriously. And when you had come back, I think you had the next day off as well. So you came back, the following day, and you were 15 minutes early. And that really was like the start of our kind of relationship, moving forward. Like, you really just said, you know what, I do want this job. I am going to step into this role. And look at what you've accomplished. Look at, what both of us have accomplished over, the last, 9-10 years. I think being in a place like that, being involved in a community, a job that really followed the rules. I mean, we were rule followers, so much that a lot of people that came and worked with us at Santa Barbara just couldn't make it because we set the bar here and we expected you to get there. Now, we were willing to help, we were willing to lend a hand, we were willing to give you direction, but we set the standards high. And I think because of that, we've been able to accomplish what we have in our careers. I took over as executive chef at 27 years old, as for a multi-million-dollar catering company. You then replaced me when I left as executive chef. You were also 27 years old. And, this is like the biggest job that, that we were working for. And why we were prepared and ready was because we held ourselves accountable, and then we learned how to hold others accountable. We knew how to build teams. Really, that's what it came down to. We had to work really hard at being able to build teams quickly. And I think a lot of it was because, a catering company in Arizona is just seasonal, really, really seasonal. And this industry is seasonal, but like Arizona has like the hardest summer season ever. And oftentimes we would lose our entire staff. We would have to start all over every single year. I mean, how many times were we like, okay, out of a team of 30, we have one person coming back. Don't you remember?
Oh, there's 2 this year.
I know. Or like, yes, we have a dishwasher. Thank the Lord. Okay, good. We can, start over. And so we just had to get really good at being really effective leaders, because oftentimes we could start hiring first week in September, and we had to be ready to go, second or third week. So this is why I kind of wanted to, have this topic with you today. And I kind of wanted to, as I branched off and started doing my consulting, I really had to put to words what it is that we just did naturally, that we had like learned how to master along the way when it came to effective management, leaders, being leaders, holding people accountable. And so I kind of created like these 6 steps that you have to do, like in order to be really good at it. And you and I have both gone through those steps so many times. And I think it's so important to share it with everybody out there, because by far what I hear constantly, the hardest part of, being in the restaurant industry, being in the catering industry, being in anything food and beverage, is trying to build a team that can execute your vision. And right now we have to be able to grow. We have to be able to compete. We have to be, sustainable. And it really comes down to your team. So, that's really why I'm so excited to have you on here today. And another thing that I wanted to kind of share with everybody before we even dive in is that during our 9 years together, just working there at Santa Barbara, we were friends. Not just like, friends, we were really good friends. Like, I was in your wedding, my dad married you guys. But we still had to have roles that were clearly defined. I had to be your boss, and then at certain points, you then became my boss, and we had to kind of work through that. So how do you feel like we were able to maintain that kind of friendship while also being in like these leadership roles? Because I feel like that's something people always say, like, you can't be friends with the people you work with.
Yeah, and I think we've done a big thing of kind of proving that wrong.
Sure.
I would say that most of our really good friends were people that we worked with.
Yeah.
And that was something I think that, you were a huge believer in and a preacher in, is, they should be your friends, and they should be some of your closest and your best friends, especially as much as we work together. You spend so much time having that other person's back that it's almost like if you don't have that relationship, it's kind of hard to translate in the workplace to such a good team.
Yeah.
But you also have to know to communicate, know when our friendship is one place and our work is another, because there's been plenty of times where, even working together, we may have not seen eye to eye, or, not gotten along or something, but it never made us go home and we would still go home and talk on the phone for an hour afterwards. Sure. After we spent 50% of the day fighting with
together.
No, this goes on the plate that way.
Yeah. Marissa, be careful how many things you put on that plate, and you're like, I just want to do it. And it's like, yeah. But I think that, that is something, to say here, and why I think both of us have been able to build teams together plus separately is because we do have that ability to really connect with people. I don't know about you, but I don't want anybody on my team that isn't willing to bleed with me, doesn't respect me enough as a person to respect the job that they're doing. And it's not easy to find. And it's not like I'm saying that you want to be best friends with all of your team members, because that's not it. What I am saying, though, is that you do have to have that respect level between one another that often turns into friendship, or it turns into some sort of relationship that's more than this is just a job to me. Because let's face it, I think I say this almost every time I come on here, none of us woke up and said, I want to work 15 hours a day. I want to work nights and weekends and holidays and all of these things that come along with it. And so if you're not in it because you have so much passion for what you do, it's the wrong industry, right? I mean, you have to be able to.
Oh, definitely. I mean, no one's like, I love missing every birthday party and every event. You do it because you love it. You love food. You're driven by the industry, and you love everything that you're doing every day. There's ups and downs, but those 15, 20-hour killer Decembers, I think they only come if you have that true passion for what you're doing, but also who you're doing it with. So once you've built that team and really started to get people that are gelling together, it's just a whole totally different, it allows you to push further and then set the culinary bar even higher and higher, which is, I think, is something we were able to do together, start in one place, and slowly every single year, plates became more intricate, things changed a little bit more. We just got better because we were growing everyone together. And I think it's great that, you are doing consulting, because that's what you were meant to do, is help train people and build teams and make this industry better. And it's great that someone's finally actually putting a method, a true and tried method behind the madness of everything that the industry is. You have the steps down, you've been through it, you will be in there and bleed with that person next to them. And I think sometimes it's hard to kind of take a step back when you're in it and almost write it all down. And it's great that you've had the time to put it together and formulate a plan and write these steps down and document your experience and all of our experiences together and put them into something, because I think what everyone did together was amazing.
And it was hard. It was hard to kind of figure out, like, how did we do that? It became almost like unspoken. We just knew how. So for me, what I had to do is go back. I had to go back to the beginning in my mind and remember experiences like the one that I had with you, where, I sent you home and then you became, one of the best chefs I've ever met in my entire life. And what was that like? What was that process like for not just me as the leader, but me as the employee as well? And so I think, I hope that this is helpful for everybody. I know that Marissa, you've utilized these steps, even, now in your career. So I'm really excited to be able to share them with everybody. So we're just going to kind of dive in. So I tried to make it something that like maybe people could remember. So it does spell out the word leader. And the first step is to learn. And what I mean by that is, in order to be a really good manager, in order to, be able to, effectively build a team, grow a team, expand your team, you have to be able to learn first. You have to learn the people. What is it that motivates them? What is it that inspires them? What are the things that they're great at? What are the things that they're just going to fail at? Learning those people, spending time learning it, because if you don't do that, you're never going to be able to put the right person in the right place at the right time. And there is a right person for everything, and every task, in every situation. How many times, Pook, she's Pookie to me, that's my nickname for her, but how many times, Pook, were we, at an event and we had 25 temps that just walked through the door, and we had to figure out where to place them and how to place them. And we had, sometimes 5 minutes to learn them. We would do things like, all right, here's some tomatoes. Let me see if you can cut these tomatoes into quarters. Now, if they were perfect quarters, we knew that we could put them on more intricate things. Some people would walk in and they'd be like, don't give me a knife, don't give me a knife. And we knew that they were going to scoop potatoes that day, right? But it took like talking, do you have any examples that you can kind of share with people about like how do you learn someone?
It's almost like, how we're constantly, I feel like we refer to the kitchen a lot of times, or people that you're managing, as your kids.
Yeah.
Even though, you might be 10, 15 years younger than them, for some reason you're constantly like, oh, the kids. Mm-hmm. Because it's sort of what that becomes, is you have to learn how to work with them. You have to learn their strengths, their weaknesses, what they're good at, how to help them along. So it is almost like you're parenting along the way. This did not work. Don't ever give them that task again.
Right.
Or, what they really needed to be doing was this. So you become, I think we've referred to it before as a coach. You're like the head coach of a football team. And you have to learn who's kind of plugging in and where people fit in. And I think there's been, plenty of times where we've gone back and forth with things of where to put people and how to deal with them. And it's definitely, I feel like I more recently remember going through all of these steps to become a fairly decent leader.
You are a great leader, and you know that.
I have the tendency to not be as soft and to be very, very blunt. And sometimes it takes people saying like, hey, well, you can't tell them that because they're crying in the bathroom now.
Right.
Because you just, told them something that and I'm like, well, what do you mean that? Oh, there was someone who I told them that, just so you know, my 8-year-old can cut better than you. And
I
then
remember when you said that.
yeah, and I think they went and cried to you, and you were like, you can't tell people that. And I was like, well, why can't I? I was just being truthful. I actually meant that. I think I've seen an 8-year-old cut better than you. It wasn't meant to be a compliment. And, you pointed it out multiple times, like, well, some people, that's fine. Yes, you and I can talk to each other like that, but other people don't appreciate that. And I think it's taken me a very long time to get past and to start learning, like, oh, I can't, that's not helping them. That's all you're doing is making the day worse.
Well, and I think, it is just kind of going back to, really reading like body language is really important in management. And I know that like we didn't expect that going into this, right? We didn't say like, wait, I have to be like almost a therapist who can, really like, diagnose somebody's personality and then approach them in a way that is easy to absorb. But that is the truth. Marissa, I could say to you, hey, that food looks like garbage, throw it away. And you would go, okay, no problem. But could we say that to somebody else? No, absolutely not. We would have to say, okay, listen, if you were to look at this dish, would you spend this much money on it? Right? We would try to relate to them in a way that it made sense. Like, somebody's paying $80 a person for this meal, just the meal. Would you go out and spend $80 on that? And they would be like, no, absolutely not. And so then it became something where they wanted to work harder, but it had to be something that they could absorb, that made sense, So really being able to like learn the people is the first step, I think, in just becoming a really effective manager and leader. And it just takes practice. I think, if you do have kids, and I'm glad that you brought that up, like think about your kids. Like you have certain kids. I know, like for my dad growing up, he could never yell at me because I would not be able to handle it, right? But like my younger brother Josh, like he was always getting yelled at because he just didn't get it. You know what I mean? If my dad even like slightly raised his voice, I couldn't look him in the eye for a week and a half, So that wasn't going to be effective. I was also the person that like grounded myself, before I like told on myself, we're like
corner, Dad. Corner.
So, all right. Well, you want to bring us into the next step?
All right, so our next step is the E part, and it's something that I've definitely had to focus on. Like I said, I feel like all of these things are very recent for me. Yeah. Is the E is setting an example and being the example. And I think it's something you and I have gone back and forth about a lot of times, where you like to think that you're the exemption to the rules. By you, I mean me. Yeah. You are that exemption. You don't, oh, I can do it this way because I know what I'm doing, but you can't do it that way. You have to learn the steps first. I think it's getting to that point of really explaining to people and showing them an example, not just giving them the directions and saying, here you go for it. Or, not being the one who shows up 5 minutes late every day and then expecting your staff to not do the same.
Yeah.
You have to, and mine was more so in the cooking way of like, yeah, you understand later on how this and this does this, but when you do it that way, the person who's doing it for the first time wants to do it the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
And they might not completely understand that that's how you can do it eventually. Yeah, there are multiple ways to get there, but you have to start at the beginning somehow. So it's a great, we dealt with a lot of people with not any experience.
Yeah.
And you're completely molding fresh new minds, and you have to show them from start to finish how everything needs to be done. And you have to remember that as a leader, you're setting that example every single day, from the day that you wake up and make your bed. That's probably one of the interview questions that has always stuck with me. Is someone was interviewing me for something, and that's what he asked was, do you make your bed every morning? And I was like, well, no, I don't understand the big deal of it. And he said, I ask everyone this question because if you're too lazy to make your bed in the morning, you're probably going to be too lazy to clean up my restaurant.
I mean, that's it. That's a really interesting question. I don't think we've ever talked about that question being, before, which is odd because we talk about everything. So,
yeah, right.
But that's actually, it is a really good example, and it is a really good point. And I think, just to kind of chime in, with you along the way, you used to get mad at me because I would take the recycle out, right? Constantly. I was constantly wheeling that recycle bin out. And the reason I was doing it was because you weren't mad because I was doing it. You were mad because we had other people that could have been doing it. And that might have kept me there, past 16, 17 hours that day. And I would say, but I'm doing this because I want to show our team that I'm not too good to take the recycle out. I am not too good to pick up the broom. I'm not too good to go in the dish room. And if any of you think that way, then you don't belong in this kitchen with us. Right. And
Yeah,
I think
no, you're fine. It's a good point to show people is that you're not too scared to do the dirty work with them. And I think it said a lot team wise for that. And if, it's true, if you're not willing to stand next to your team and to do the dirty work with them, then you're not going to have that team for very long. And then their respect is always going to stop at a certain level.
Sure.
Because they don't, even though, yes, you have a very important job and you have a million other things better to do, that one simple gesture that, took 5 minutes, that got you outside, got you, walking around and doing something different, meant a lot to them because it let people see you in a different light. And I think that's what managers need to remember and leaders need to remember, is that you also have to be a human, who works alongside them and doesn't think that your job is better than their job. And I think that that's a super small gesture like that kind of shows people that you don't think that way and you do value their position because you're willing to help out in their position.
Well, and then it would take it to a point where people would stop me and say to me, I know you were here 2 hours before me today, and I know that you're going to be here 5 hours after me. Let me do this for you right now. And then I would hand it over and say thank you. But the beginning stages of that allowed them to, just like you say, see me in a different light so that they could respect the job that I have, because they know that I'm respecting the job that they have. And what happens then is that it opens their mind to the bigger picture. How often, did we sit around and talk about the fact that, they just don't understand the big picture, right? They don't see it. It's tunnel vision. I can only see, the tomatoes I'm chopping in front of me. I can't see the 900 other things that are happening around me. So those are the kinds of things that start to open up the mind when you're building a team member, when you're building an individual, and trying to offer opportunity for growth and expansion. It starts with opening their minds to more, right?
Yeah, getting people to know that there are more possibilities and that it's to look up from your cutting board.
Yeah.
Which can be really hard to do when you're trying to learn and you're trying to focus and you're trying to do a good job and almost absorb everything that's going on around you, is that there's a bigger picture and everyone next to you's job, whether it's the executive chef, the owner, the dishwasher, every single person next to you is a part of a team and is a part of something bigger. So even though your job might seem small, or you're looking and you're putting your head down and you're just trying to do it, it creates that sort of bond to know that everyone's job is important, and helps people slowly start to look up from the cutting board and realize that, oh, there's a whole kitchen moving around me. And there's been the days where people walk in and would walk into the kitchen and didn't realize it's busy, but there's 27 hot boxes lining the hallway. And 18 trucks parked outside, and people are like, oh, what's going on today? Are there a lot of parties leaving?
And it's like, yeah, I mean, and those are the moments where you're like, do you remember your prep list on Monday? And it was 7 pages long, like 7 pages. Like there's a reason that it was 7 pages because it's Thursday now and we're now executing the 18 events that we have going on. I think that, you know, not to try to get like sidetracked or anything, but we've definitely mastered the ability to, build teams from scratch. And like you had mentioned before, we had a lot of employees come in that, this might have been their first job ever. We had 17, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds that have turned into executive chefs. I mean, look at Farhan, he's doing amazing, and but it took allowing them the opportunity to see that there was more going on, to really, really make sure that we were setting the example, learning who they are, but then, holding them accountable, which is the next step. That's step 3, accountability. And why I've titled this particular talk accountability and management is because by far accountability is the hardest one for managers. It is the hardest one. Even now with my clients, this is the one that they stop at. They just get stopped straight in their tracks and really have a hard time with accountability. But, going back to Marissa, you're a minute late, leave. You do it again, you don't have a job, right? And guess what? You came back ready, and then you took my job. You know what I'm saying? So it works, right? I mean, it's 100% something that you have to do. It's not fun being the bad guy. I mean, gosh, how many times did I say, I hate being the bad guy? I hate being the bad guy. I mean, there were times where I was crying over it because it does become overwhelming to always have to be the one that says the hard, to put the person in check. Because you don't want to do that. I don't want to look at somebody and say, I know you worked on this for the last 6 hours, but it's burnt. Sorry, you have to start over. But guess what? They're never going to make that mistake again.
Yeah, and I think people really struggle with accountability because it's not fun. It's not, out of all of these steps, no one's like, oh God, I really can't wait to go home and beat myself up about the entire day. I know that this was all my fault and I could have made better choices, but I can't wait to go home and think about that. No one wants to do that. No one really wants to hold themselves accountable because that's not fun. But at the end of the day, it is one of the most important steps, is being able to take a step back and realize I was a part of that issue, or there could have been something done better. I need to work on my time management. I need to put these people in better positions, or get things done a little bit earlier. I know for myself, I'm a huge procrastinator. So I like to put things off later and later and later. And, eventually things start catching up with you. And then you realize, if you don't hold yourself accountable for things like that, you're never going to grow. And, you won't grow into a great leader. You won't be able to grow your company forward any further. You won't be able to build teams if you can't start to look at yourself and hold yourself accountable for what you're doing and, for where you may have gone wrong. And, like I said, I go back and refer to it a lot of times as, you're like a head coach. Yeah. And if the head coach is making calls and not holding themselves responsible or accountable for things, then at the end of the day, your team's going to struggle, and you're not going to have a job for very long, or you're not going to have a company for very long if you can't look back and reflect on your week or reflect on the day. And, there's good and bad with every little thing, and you have to look at both of them. It's not just holding yourself accountable for the bad you do or for what's not going right, but also holding yourself accountable for, for the good that you're doing, or for that week that you just accomplished that was amazing.
Yeah.
You have to take both of them hand in hand and start to grow from your good and bad. But, when you're at the helm, you have to hold yourself accountable, even when it's not fun.
Well, which is, why I even created, taking the wheel consulting. You know what I mean? Like you said it exactly there. Like you have the ability to do anything you want to do, to build a team, to start a business, to launch a new product, but it has to come back to you. It always has to come back to you. If you can't hold yourself accountable, let's say as the leader, you're never going to be able to hold a team accountable. It's just like saying, like you were saying in the beginning, I know that I can possibly get away with dicing it a certain way, because if it doesn't work, I'll just fix it on site at the event, right? I know I can get away with that, but now my team members think that they can too. So you can't, you know what I mean? You can't do that. It just will never, ever, ever work. I mean, even going back to like, really first and foremost, with accountability, you have to be able to hold yourself accountable first as a leader. Okay. Then you have to start holding your team members accountable for everything. And I mean everything, down to, the last, how many times were we in the walk-ins at the end of the day going through every single item, that got prepared that day, and going through and saying, okay, this isn't right, this is too much, this is too little. And then we would have to bring that to our team members' attention and show them, like, these 5 things were labeled wrong. They could have went out to the wrong party. These 10 things were, were missing. And what happened with that is that, it put more work on us in the beginning, because we had to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. But what ends up happening is that people start taking their jobs a lot more seriously, because they know that they're going to be held accountable for that job. They know that it's not okay to not have that completed 100%, because we're going to come in and we're going to say something about it. This one by far is the one that people, they get stopped in their tracks, because it's not fun, like we said. It's also a lot of work to hold yourself accountable and to hold team members accountable. It's a lot of work. But guess what happens? You start to be able to build team members that can start taking on things that you do every single day. I mean, that's what you want to do, right? I knew that I didn't want to be working, 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. So what I do, I said, hey, Marissa, I'm going to start showing you, I'm going to start holding you accountable so that I can start offloading some of these more things, which then in turns starts the process for growing teams and rock stars that can handle anything that comes their way. Okay. One thing that we haven't really talked about is the current times we're living in right this second. Okay. We're fighting. We are fighting to keep our businesses alive out there, which means that we have to be able to compete. Oh, Kelly misses highlighting and finding. Oh, don't we highlighting, Kelly?
You really miss highlighting, though.
You do not miss highlighting, Kelly. Don't say that. But now I lost my train of thought. I miss you, Kelly. Margundi, we love you.
I have a picture of you right here.
Oh, look at that.
Next to my bedside, because I miss you.
No, I mean, accountability. It's so important, because if we can't compete right now, if we can't say, be the strong ones that last through this, we aren't going to make it. We just aren't. I know for my clients right now, like it's now or never. We have, they have to be focusing on their business. They have to be doing it 100% the right way. Otherwise, they're just not going to make it. Times are too hard. And, I say it constantly, as, true success lies in the success of your team, because guess what? We are an industry made up of people that offer products and services. But at the end of the day, we are an industry of people. We can't do the job without our teams. We just can't. We certainly can't grow. We certainly can't expand. And we're never going to be able to compete if we can't grow. And competition now is harder than ever, because you literally think you got it down. You think you got something cool going on, and then you go on to Instagram and you're like, okay, it's not even cool anymore. It was literally not cool a week ago, and I just launched it this week, right? I mean, isn't that how it goes?
There's so much. It's crazy to think how different, even I think, like the food industry was before social media, because now you have all of this at your fingertips. If you're scrolling through Instagram, you're looking at beautiful dish after beautiful dish, and you have all these creative, different new things that you can start moving forward to. It's almost like, when your parents say no one looks in a dictionary anymore, or no one has encyclopedias. They're very similar to old school, sitting there all day and flipping through cookbooks.
Sure.
Which is, what a lot of chefs spend their time doing. And that's how you get really creative. And now it's just scroll, scroll, scroll. And you're looking at all of these amazing chefs from all across the world doing things that you've never even heard of or thought of. And you just have so much quicker access to that if you're not, really in it every single day, that it's going to be really, really quick to fall behind, especially with new, food trends and things like that. It's something that we're constantly doing, is paying attention to what's new, what's exciting in food, especially in, the event and private chef industry. Everyone is so unique and creative. You have to constantly be on it to have something that's gonna set you apart, and you have to hold yourself accountable for that. I mean, I know that there's times when you're scrolling through nothing. And, at one point I told myself, I'm sitting here on my phone at night, or I'm watching this mindless TV. I'm doing nothing. Why don't I sit here and learn? So I would lay in bed, and, Kelly would be asleep, and I would just lay there watching all of these random cooking videos all night long, until 1:00 in the morning or something. And it's a way that I started holding myself accountable to spend less time doing, just the mindless things that you're doing, even if it's 15 minutes at night that I would have just maybe been scrolling through Instagram or Facebook or watching a TV show. That 15 minutes is making a difference in my food knowledge. Just watching this video of something you would have never thought you'd be able to see in person. There's chefs breaking down 200-pound ahi. It's crazy, all of the things that you can sit there and watch that you would have never been able to see 10, 15 years ago, not right on your fingertips.
Well, and then
like holding yourself accountable in staying relevant.
Well, absolutely. And I think, I have clients right now that have, kind of gone through all of these steps and really have, built teams. And, I'll walk in and I'll say, let's try this new thing. And, within 5 minutes, they walk into the kitchen and they say, okay, I want you to try doing this, 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 and this. And they're like, okay, got it. And then, 25 minutes later, we have like a whole spread of new dishes available to us to taste, to try, to, kind of put out. But it's amazing because, I remember a conversation with one of my clients where she looked at me and she said, I would have never been able to pull something like this off had I not, really, really kind of went through these steps and built the team members that can handle something like that. I would have been too scared. I would have never been able to launch this new idea, or I would have never even tried to go after, a new concept, because I just would have been too scared. My team members couldn't handle it, which does this. It keeps you really small. And then what happens is nobody knows who you are anymore, because it is so easy to just go onto Instagram and see all the cool things that, all these other places are doing, and you're kind of left behind. So you really have to have the team that can execute it. It's one thing, like we've said, sure, maybe you and I can go in there and we can think like that. We can execute something like that. But now let's do it for, 200 people, 1,000 people, 20,000 people. Let's launch it this weekend on a Friday and Saturday night. You know what I mean? That's where you need to be able to get to. That's the sweet spot. That's really why these steps are so important, and with that, what, can you kind of go into the next step for me?
So the next step is the D in it, which is direction. And, we were kind of going through this a little bit ago, is just on the lines of example is giving people more than just the finger pointing direction, or, you know, this is here, go do this. But it's the example of, you know, and the direction of this is how you do it and this is why.
Right.
And I think, you know, a big part of what we did was we were constant teachers.
Yeah.
And not necessarily just, you know, we didn't just push something off and, you know, here's a cutting board, here's a knife, cut this tomato. It's cut this tomato perfectly in half. Do not cut it like that, because this is why. It's for, you know, this very nice plated event, and we're going to layer these tomatoes a certain way.
Here's a picture of what it's going to end up looking like, so that you understand the importance of why I'm telling you to cut perfect circles, because it, you know, it has to fit, you know, in this little tart shell perfectly, or whatever it was. You know, you said it exactly right. It's not just giving a list of directions. It's saying why as well. And when you do that, when you really, really, really know how to give effective direction, you know how to be the director, that's when people can understand and have the ability to start making decisions, because they understand why. You know, I always say, like, you know, it's one thing to tell them to go put the cake batter right in the walk-in. Go put the cake batter in the walk-in and put it on the bottom shelf. Well, they walk in and there's no room on the bottom shelf. So they decide, oh, I'll put it on the middle shelf, and walk away. And then 10 minutes later, we'd go in and we'd be like, oh, I told him to put it on the bottom shelf, but I didn't tell him why. And the reason why was that it has raw egg. So it has to go on the bottom shelf because it contains raw egg. They didn't know that. So they couldn't make a decision because we only gave them this much information to go off of. You know what I mean? I mean, I feel like there were so many times where people would say to me and to you, like, gosh, you just are so descriptive in your delivery of something. Like, I never have to question, because we would be like, do this. I want you to put it in this container. I'm going to walk you into the walk-in. I'm going to show you exactly where I want it. And it has to have this color sticker on it. And you know what I mean? But because we spent that time doing that, we could have people in our kitchens that had never had a job a day in their life. It's why we could have, you know, we could have, you know, 35 temp chefs on a plate up for 1,500 people that we've never met a day in our life, right? Because we just knew how to do that so effectively, you know?
Oh yeah, and give those, it's almost like you have to be a constant mini map quest of the kitchen. You have to give, you don't want to be the Google that's bumping them off track every 5 seconds when they're on their way to get something, or constantly rerouting. You know, you turn left here and okay, you're going to put it on the third shelf. Once you get in the walk-in, it's going to be right next to this and that. It's that the organization and learning all of those things from the first few steps that get you to being able to give such clear and concise directions. And once you get to that point of showing people, they understand and they learn a lot faster. I think that's something that a lot of people around us did, was everyone learned 10 times quicker than they would have in another position.
Yeah.
You know, we constantly joke and we call them, you know, dog years or unicorn years and things like that. But really, I think a lot of it was the management and the leadership style that just got people along a lot further and a lot quicker.
I mean, do you remember Madeline Madeline? Madeline, we love Madeline. I mean, she was, you know, a server captain, you know, going through, you know, college. And, you know, at one point she came in and she was just helping us in the kitchen for a short period of time, you know, just to get some extra hours. And then all of a sudden she became like our pastry chef for a minute. You know what I mean? She was like our pastry chef at some point. And it was like, how did that happen? Like, she had never even baked a cookie. Is Kelly being crazy over there?
She is. She's been very distracting.
Kelly. But don't you remember that? I mean, and there's so many other people like that too, that kind of, you know, came in and, you know, out of nowhere, we were able to, like, you know, and they had to do the work too. It's not like we're sitting here being like, gosh, it's because of us that they were able to do that. They had to put the work in too, but it was so amazing to watch. It really was. Like, I look back on those years where we were working together, and I'm just like, my God. I mean, that was one of the best experiences of my life, and probably will always be. And the cool thing too is that all of us now are, we are doing our own things, and we're kind of all over the place, and but we are all still so connected because of those experiences together. And I think that we all can just agree on the fact that, like, had we not done that part in our life, we would not be where we are right now.
Oh,
like
definitely.
it really set us up.
The speed training of it almost. And I mean, like you said, what we did with the servers, of just bringing people in with no experience, who just wanted to learn and grow at something different. I mean, we had people last year who were saying, I'm 47 years old, 50 years old, and this is the best job I've ever had in my life. And it's just what the vibes that everyone was bringing, and the teamwork and the camaraderie, and how everyone works together and holds themselves and holds each other accountable, because that's something I think that we preached all the way across the board to every single employee, is that everyone, from all these steps, everyone learns that they're responsible, and that they take their own care for their jobs, and it gives them more pride in what they're doing. I mean, we constantly had, Rosa would be making chicken skewers and would be yelling at us for getting, touching the skewer with a dirty finger. And it was just an example of someone who took so much pride in what they did that it didn't matter. They were going to hold you accountable, because you also did that for them. And people got there from giving the good directions. I mean, you could just go step through this list and realize how you can look at one person and break down these different experiences that you had with them, and how each step really is just so important to hit along the way. And you have to teach and create, handle every employee as if they are the leader, because in their life and in their job, they're the leader of it.
Also too, though, one thing that we did, I think, really well, and I don't want to say that you should be, just firing people left, right, and center, but we fired a lot of people, a lot along the way. And, this is another thing that I kind of really stress to a lot of my clients is I'm not saying that I want you to fire somebody that just because. What I am saying is that if they don't care, they don't have a place. And that was one thing that we took really seriously, because I remember having interviews with people, and I would say it straight up. My team means everything to me. My team bleeds with me. My team is the most important thing to me in the world. And if anybody comes in and disrupts that, they don't have a place here. I didn't care if they had 45 years of experience. I didn't care if they were going to be able to come in and take 900 things off of my plate, if they were going to disrupt with my team and not care, like Rosa, who was our dishwasher, who would scream at you if you messed up one of her chicken skewers. If you don't care like Rosa, you don't have a place here. And I think that showed our team members that, like, listen, so-and-so could be shiny, bright, new, and fun, but I still value what you do more than that, because you care, you have heart, you have grit, you have compassion, you have dedication, and that's really the only thing it takes to make it in this industry. The rest can be learned, which, brings me to the next step in it, which is the next E, and it's empower. Getting to a point where you can empower your team members to make decisions. That right there, that's the point where your team is starting to, like, become like these rock stars, and they're really able to like take things off of your plate. And that's when it opens up the ability to start looking at new options and new plate presentations, and maybe some elevated offerings or style of service, action stations or whatever it is when you can get to a point where you can empower your team members to make decisions.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think if you're showing these people, and you've obviously taught them that all the way along, throughout this process, is that they know that you have their back. Yeah. And you get to a point with them, and they get to a point where they're comfortable making a decision because you've given them that comfortability. Yeah. You've showed them that, hey, you are smart, you are talented, you can do this, this, and that. Now get out there and do it. And I think, not just as professionals and as friends as well, I think we all do that a lot for each other, is constantly empower each other and, help all of us sort of move forward and give us that confidence to be able to take the next step. Because I don't think any of us would be where we were if someone didn't empower us along the way and really make us feel like, oh, you know what, I can do this job. I can take this on. I can move forward. I can do this. That's what everyone needs to know. And they need to feel comfortable from, whether you're the owner of the company or just barely starting off, everyone along the way has to know that they have to feel empowered and know that they can succeed. Because if you don't have that feeling, then you're not going to want to continue pushing. You're not going to want to stay relevant. You're not going to, be innovative and be creative and be all these things that you need to do to be successful in the business and to be a successful leader. You're not going to want to do that if you don't feel like, hey, I have the confidence. I feel like I can make this step or make this decision, make this move, and it turn out successful. Or know that even if I'm not successful in this, or if this doesn't work out, that, hey, that person next to me, they've got my back. Or if I make this decision and I make this call and it doesn't turn out 100%, I know the person above me, they're going to come and help me. They're going to have my back.
Do you remember when Angela, she had an event at the farm and the oven didn't work. And this is one of my favorite examples of feeling empowered that I can ever, I think, share with anybody. And I know I've shared it, in different places before, but I'm gonna share it again because the oven didn't work. And she remembered that there was an oven at the other end of the property. She was looking at her watch, knowing it was, it was 160 people buffet, and she's looking at the time, being like, what do I do? What do I do? And she remembered that there was an oven at the other end of the property. So she asked for help. They loaded up all the food. They drove it to the other end of the property, and she cooked all the food, got it out on time. And you and I found out about it like after the event. We never even heard from her. And I remember calling her and being like, I'm so proud of you. And she's like, oh, did you hear? And I said, yeah. She goes, I didn't want to bother you. And I said, no, it's okay. And she goes, just so you know, though, if I didn't feel like that was the right decision, I would have called you. And I said, I know. And that's having that trust, like just knowing that like she's going to make the right call to the very best of her abilities, right? She didn't not pick up the phone because of an ego. She didn't not pick up the phone because she was scared of a reaction. She didn't pick up the phone because she didn't need to pick up the phone, because we had taught her all of these things along the way. We had said, if something like this ever happens, there's always a solution, right? She had seen us struggle with this process in the past too. She had seen us be at an event and the oven doesn't work, and all of a sudden you're like, well, hot box, I guess. Or, the 6 dirt burner doesn't work, and all of a sudden sheet trays become the best rondos you've ever seen in your life. You can never use them again, but that's besides the point. The event must go on. And, but she felt empowered. And I just remember being like, wow, this is cool. this is really cool. And I think, you know, I ended up calling you right after, and you're like, just look at her. We're so proud. You know, she again was somebody who started with us with very, very, very little experience. And then she's cooking events for, you know, 180 people by herself and making those kinds of educated, smart decisions in our absence. And that's what it's really all about. Now, the next part to that is the last step, and that is responsibility. Okay.
That's my favorite
Now,
step.
huh?
That's my favorite step.
Is it your favorite step? You know, I think it's one thing to feel empowered to make a decision. It's another thing to feel responsible to make many, or to be able to take on the responsibility of making many decisions. And, you know, this is really that step that allows for the most growth expansion opportunities out there. I knew that, you know, at one point I was going to be leaving Santa Barbara. And of course, you know, I was a weirdo who gave an 18-month notice. And, you know, you and Kelly were going to be taking over. And I remember you guys being, you know, you stepping into those roles, ready to take on more responsibility, which allowed me to work on things within the rest of the company, like sales and operations and staffing and other logistical things, because now you guys were ready to take on all of the entire kitchen. And it just allowed for us to be able to do bigger, cooler, more exciting things, and be even more relevant. And the best part too, and this is what I think everybody needs to get to, you know, we struggle with staffing. We struggle with this industry taking over our lives. We struggle with trying to take a day off. How am I ever going to take a day off? The whole world is going to fall apart if I take a day off, but not if you have rock stars. Right? I mean, how many days were, you know, did I start to be able to take off because you guys were able to do it, you know? And then you guys had people that you know, you could rely on so that you could take a day off. I mean, that was the whole point, building rock stars that can handle anything that comes their way so that this industry does not take over your life. That is the best part of all of it. But it all comes back to your team.
Oh yeah, and it's definitely I feel like the thing about responsibility is it's, you know, it's the last letter in it, but it's definitely the one that has to be the most, it has to be a give and take. You have to be ready to take on more responsibility to grow, but you also have to be ready to give off more responsibility in order to grow. You know, you can't be, and I think it's something a lot of people, myself included, struggle with giving other people responsibility. You know, there's been times where you and I've gone back and forth where it's like, oh my God, Becky, just let me do it.
I know.
I can do it. So you just have to let it go and let me do it. You know, and I do the same thing where I'm, nope, it's okay, I'll do it. It's fine. I'll do this and this. I'll do it all myself. And at the end of the day, if you don't give that responsibility off to your team, if you haven't taken those steps and empowered them in those ways, then you are going to be responsible for everything. But you're not going to be able to grow. You're not going to be able to move forward and remain cool and innovative and do all of these different things if the one single person who's sitting on top is the only person that's responsible for anything, and you can't let go of any power, or, you know, I don't want to let anyone highlight. That's why Kelly loves highlighting. She's so good at it. But they're just they're the little things that it has to be a give and take relationship with this letter for sure. And this word is, you have to give responsibility and you have to take responsibility. You have to take it for your actions. You have to hold yourself accountable for your actions and for your teams. You have to want to be able to take on more responsibility and say, hey, I can do this. Okay, I can do this. Yeah, let's add this, this, and that for you to grow and for you to become further.
Yeah, because I offloaded responsibilities, I could take on more myself, learn more, grow more. I mean, had I not given, you know, a lot of responsibility and just kind of, you know, shifted it in your guys' direction, I wouldn't have been able to go into those other areas within the business that now allow me to run a full service consulting business, because I have all of these experiences that I've been able to go through throughout my career that make me now knowledgeable to be able to be that for somebody else. But I had to offload. I had to say, you know what, it's okay if you order, you know, 10 extra, bags of, dinner rolls. It's gonna be okay. It's just a dinner roll at the end of the day. It's gonna be fine. And you'll talk through and you'll figure out why we ordered extra, and if it was a necessary step or it wasn't a necessary step, and you move on.
And I probably ordered 3 less.
You probably didn't order enough because
I was too cheap.
yeah, Kelly definitely ordered extra because she's that's why she's my favorite. I'm sorry.
Okay, we all have to have a favorite child.
Anyway, I'm going to go real quick through all of these steps again in order. So the first one is to learn your people, learn what inspires them, what motivates them. And the next step is the example. Be the example every day. There isn't a day that you're the exception to the rule. So be the example. The next one's accountability, holding yourself accountable first so that you can hold your team accountable. Next one is direction, not to be confused with directions. Direction gives directions, but also explains why. Next is empower. Empower your team. Get them to a point where you can really empower them to make decisions for you, because that then allows them to take on more responsibility, which is the last one. Okay. It's all about building rockstar teams. It's all about enjoying the process, building teams of people who care, who want to bleed this with you, who are invested. And I promise you, if you do that, there's really nothing you can't do as a business. Okay. True success does lie in the success of your team. It's the first thing I focus on in consulting, and it's what stays true throughout the entire process. It's something I'm so passionate about. I think everybody knows that about me. Like my teams. I literally can't. I love my teams so much. But it's 100% mutual, and I know that they would also do anything for me. So that's a really good feeling, especially when you're in business. And I hope that for anybody out there who's struggling with this, who's really kind of feeling like this industry's taking over my life and I just can't take anymore, I'm ready to give up, I'm ready to throw in the towel. Take 1 minute to really just think about who's standing next to you, and should they be? Because if they're not, if they shouldn't be, get rid of them and bring in that person who's never had a job a day in their life. That mom who said, I will do anything. I have 3 kids to feed and I'm not scared of hard work. That's going to be your right hand.
And you have to become that, that leader. And I think that what you have set up here and the steps that you have and the way you have them written, it's not just for the food service industry. I think that it's 100% people can compare it to and relate to it in their everyday life. You want to be a good leader and you want to be a good example to everyone that's out there, and know that someone is always watching you in some way. And whether you think it or not, that person standing next to you might need that smile, or might need to, be able to look up and have a little extra helping hand, or needed that door held open for them. It's being a present leader in the world every day, which I think is something that we all really need right now, is everyone to step up. And you might not even think of yourself as one in any sort of way, but it's taking charge of leading your life and leading who you are and who you want to be, and not just relating it to food or to what we do every day, but your everyday life as well. And I think that's something that you've always preached and always said, was it's not just food, it's not just your job. We're building more than that. And I think it's something that you've been really successful at being able to do, is build strong leaders who look at it more as not just the food industry, but they look at being leaders in the world and in their communities. And that's something that, I know that I strive to do and try and remember to be every day, is not just a leader in the food service industry or in our company, but out there
as a
walking.
mom.
Yeah.
As a mom, as a friend, as a brother, as a sister, you know, you're right.
As a coworker, as
Absolutely.
a member of the community, just remember that someone's always watching, and people need that extra hand. And if you are a leader in your business or in your company, you should be showing it, every single day, and taking these steps and then applying them into your life. And I think it definitely, it's something that can make a change into people. And
I definitely agree with that. You know, I try to take these things home with me every single day, because at the end of the day, being a leader, maybe it's not something you're born with, but it definitely can be something that's learned. But then what happens is that it becomes who you are. It just becomes who you are. And it's one of the jobs that I take so seriously, and I'm so honored to be able to have been in leadership positions and continue to be in a leadership position. I mean, it's a privilege, and it's something that I feel so blessed to have a space to be able to do that, you know, for others, but for myself too. You know, it's awesome to know that, like, I wake up and I'm showing up for myself. You know, I'm showing up for my husband, and that's, I think that's really, really cool. Because it might feel like a lot of work, you know, gosh, it's just such a ton of work, you know, management, leadership, it's so hard, but it does just become second nature, it becomes who you are, and it never turns off after that. And I'm going to tell you this, like, being a leader, having worked with you guys, having, you know, worked with all of the amazing people that we have. I mean, I still, like, get choked up thinking about it. Like, this has just been, it's amazing. It really is. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. It's something that I gets me up in the morning. There's no doubt about it. That is what motivates me. People motivate me. So thank you for saying that, because it is so important to me.
I think your end quote should be, what is it you always say? It is personal. It's not just business.
It is personal.
I think, people forget that often, is that it is okay to make the business personal. Yeah. And, to build these relationships and to form teams on a different level. And, I think, like I said, it's something you've always preached, that it is personal. It's not just business. I think it's the opposite of what a lot of people are kind of always taught growing up, is to just, business is business, personal is personal. But when you have your personal heart into it, I think it will always make your business 100% better. And that's what I think this whole world needs right now. And definitely what the industry needs, is it just for us to continue putting our hearts into what we do every day.
Oh, good. All right. Tell everybody one more time where they can find you.
So I'm Marissa Delgado with Arizona Homegrown Experience. You can find us on Instagram at AZ Homegrown EXP, Facebook at the same thing. Our website is azhomegrown.com. Or you can find us on Leadership Revolution. We like to hang around there and follow along. So we hope that everyone's enjoyed this. I know that Becky and I can definitely go on and on for the next hour and a half or so.
Yeah, we could keep this going probably for another 3 hours. That's just us, and it's something that has always been really special, and I really love that about us. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and sharing your experiences with this, because I think, it was really good to let people know, like, hey, I've been there. Okay. I've been that person that just, didn't want to have to say it one more time. I didn't want to have to say the hard. And, you've really grown into your leader. I've gotten to watch you grow into your leader, and it's been amazing. I'm so proud of you and Kelly and what you guys are doing. And, I'm just excited for your guys' future, and I just love having you in my life. So thank you for coming on. I so appreciate it.
Oh, of course.
And
well, thank you for having me.
Of course. So for our next leadership leadership talks. It's going to be, I'm going to have Sarah and Lorraine Serrano from Serrano's Mexican Restaurants come on. This is going to be on November 10th, and we're going to be talking about change. Change is, so it's a hard one, I think, for all of us. It's even harder when you're you know, in a business that often requires change on a dime. So we're going to have them come in and talk about their experience with change and how, you know, change used to be scary and how it's just not as much anymore, and kind of their journey through change, especially over the last, you know, 8 months. I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be going live the following week as well on November 17th. So I'm not going to be skipping a week, and we're going to go 2 back to back. And the reason is Thanksgiving is the following week, and we're going home to Michigan. So I want to spend time with my families, and I think everybody else needs to spend time with their family that week too. So if there's anybody out there who has a topic that they'd like to kind of address, or something they've overcome, something that they feel like could be helpful or useful to the other, you know, other members of this group and people watching, I would love to hear about it. If anybody's interested in coming on and being a guest speaker, please let me know. You can email me at info@takingthewheelconsulting.com. I would love to hear from you guys. And with that, thank you. I'm so happy to have all of you guys here today. I appreciate all the support, all of our ladies who joined us today. Brittany, Bryce, Ash, Kel, we love you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Cheers.
Cheers.